Hey guys, Meteorologist Chris Tomer with this afternoon weather update. We'll look at some of the new numbers and new trends. Definitely seeing a couple of things that stand out to me. Bullet points for today. Northwest flow starts to really kick in, and that's the time period we're really talking about. Late 218 through 224, I think, really is the heart of the big totals with this. So interestingly enough, when I'm looking at the data here this afternoon, it looks to me like the 218, 219 sort of northwest flow that kicks all this off is looking a little juicier. So the surge coming down the jet and some of the orographics looking a little bit deeper for some better snow. And I'll show you the numbers on that. I mean, it's not a huge increase, but I mean, some of the numbers have gone up, have doubled in some cases. So we'll look at that coming up. And then it's followed by one or two storm systems that will ride this jet down, and actually the southern branch will have some involvement too. But the two of them are going to wrangle the moisture and spread it across the west, and potentially end up as like a Albuquerque low in one circumstance. So it'll be colder, and there's going to be some definite bullseyes. So we'll look at all that here in this update coming up. Let me just show you visible satellite. Just starting to see the sun shine on this low near Hawaii. Another one right here, you can see the spin. And then a big low right here that plays a major role in the northwest flow orientation. Here's why. So it's already kicking the jet up into this area, and then it's bending down to accommodate that low. And then the southern branch has definite involvement with that low. So what's going to happen is, I'll just change colors. Let's use lime. So eventually what's going to happen is this low will slide out and basically disintegrate, but that leaves the kink here in the flow. This is the northern branch, will come in and set up a northwest flow that'll move into this area, and that's what's going to spread all that snow down through northern Idaho, Montana, northern parts of Utah, just the Wasatch in general, the Tetons big time, that's one of my bullseyes, and into the central and northern mountains of Colorado. So that's what's going to kick all this off. I wrote about it earlier this morning on my blog, christomer.com. Take a look at that. Really appreciate everybody who subscribes to this, and if you haven't, it's really easy. Just go to the end of the blog post, put your email address, hit subscribe, you'll get a confirmation email. Thanks for that. So I talked a lot about the pattern. There it is, and then this was the jet pattern from this morning. Let me show you my update from this afternoon. There really wasn't much of a change at all. In fact, here it is. So a tiny bit of ridging across the west, really in waiting here, because after we get rid of that 1 to 2 storm system complex out of Albuquerque, we get a little bit of ridging. We're in a drier pattern waiting for the next trough, and you can see it out of the Pacific, the next dip in the jet that'll bring the action back to the west eventually after 226. And I think we're going to have an active pattern, and I talked about it into early March here. Let me show it to you. So this is the March pattern. Basically, that low I showed you out over the Pacific is now onshore at this point on March 1st. So late February, early March, we could have lower atmospheric pressure anomalies across the west, especially the Pacific Northwest, BC, parts of Northern California. That could bring the snow back to those areas. And then probably going to see some blow off into Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, possibly Colorado, if that pattern holds. So take a look at that in the blog. I also did some forecast time. I actually just added on this to the blog, so if you missed that earlier, you can go back and watch this. I'll take it full right now. Forecast, radar, and satellite. Here's Saturday morning. Here comes the northwest flow establishing late 218 and 219, and you can see it's a little juicier with that initial surge. Here's 220. Here's the morning of 221. Powerful bullseyes in place for the Tetons, and then the whole low sweeps down to Albuquerque, and there's 10 p.m. on Wednesday, 222. A lot of snow across the west at that point. I went into a lot of detail like I've been doing the last few days. I think this can be very helpful. Jackson Hole, snow in time. So you know when the big powder days are, 220. 221 are going to be outstanding. Probably 222 as well in the wake of all that. But obviously storm skiing on 221 and 220. Alta, Utah, another bullseye. Big time, 221, 222, awesome conditions into 223. Crested Butte, the numbers have come down just a little bit, but pretty consistent snow. Once we get into 222, 223, 224, a little better shot of snow right there with the main storm that comes in, because you're really out of the northwest flow in Crested Butte, so your numbers are just not going to be that enhanced that much because of a northwest flow in Crested Butte, but other areas will be. So take a look at that. My numbers from this morning are right here. let me show you my updated numbers so you can see how things have changed. And I've also got some specialty maps coming up. All right, so this is the remainder of today through 2/19. So you're seeing the northwest flow here, and all the numbers have gone up for this. You can look back at my blog and see that. Look at that. Let me pull it up. So there's my map from this morning. The numbers are all 1s and 2s and 3s. Well, not now. Now they're much bigger. Let me go back. Now we're talking 2s, 3s, 4s, 5s, 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s. So they've all, in some cases, doubled. Basically, all of Colorado now will see a little bit of snow out of this northwest flow, especially the central and northern mountains north of I-70. The Tetons, man, those numbers have doubled and tripled, so 7s and 9s. All the numbers have gone up. The Pacific Northwest, Montana now looking at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 inches out of the northwest flow. So good stuff. Here's the second period, 220 to 226. The numbers in Colorado, and this is one of the things I've noticed, continue to shift around. A couple days ago, I had much bigger numbers for Summit County and the Front Range high peaks. Those numbers have gone down because of the ultimate position of the low is just not as good for those areas. But still going to see some nice totals up around Steamboat, Cameron Pass from the northwest flow. Areas Vale West will get a fair amount into Aspen Snowmass, Crested Butte down into the San Juans, looking at a bullseye over Wolf Creek, Red Mountain, Silverton, Telluride, Purgatory should all do well out of that storm system. The numbers in the Wasatch, they've come down a few inches, but they're still, 2 to 3 feet somewhere in there. And looking at a solid 3 feet in the Tetons, I haven't changed those. Those have remained very solid. And in Montana, we're looking good with about a foot up there, and potentially more towards Brundage in Idaho. Look at the numbers up around Sunshine. I hope that holds. I hope it holds, because 20 would be excellent. And I brought up the numbers in Washington and Oregon, 40 to 50 inches possible. So we'll see how all that plays out. My specialty maps, southern Colorado, again, one of my bullseyes. Grand totals here, 217 to 226. I mean, it's self-explanatory. And even snow all the way down into Durango again at the valley floors. So here is the central and northern mountains of Colorado again. Some bigger totals out of the northwest flow up around Buff Pass, Steamboat, and Cameron Pass, Mount Zirkle areas. Let me just show you what... these are grand totals. They're down a few inches in the Wasatch here, but still looking at, 2 to 3 feet of snow. So those will probably oscillate a bit in the next few days. Let me take you up into the Tetons. I haven't really done anything with these numbers. I mean, we're still looking at about 4 feet of snow here. So 217, 226, and specifically 218 to about 223, 224, somewhere in there. That's where the bulk of this 4 feet is going to come in. So we've got some really good days ahead up at Rendezvous for sure. All right, here it is, last map. This is the northeast. Numbers are still hovering around 1 to 2 feet. Again, storm system on 222, 223 might be the primary one. Maybe another one late in the period. But nice to see these numbers in the northeast. All right, this has been a little longer update, but a lot to cover. Some good totals ahead. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Have a great, safe weekend.